Mm-mm. All right. Welcome into this Behind the Wall live show here at the Student Bookstore downtown. I appreciate everybody tuning in. We will have Caroline Jurevicius, national champion for the women's Penn State volleyball team here shortly. As very often in Penn State athletics life, you have a lot of things flying. So she is coming from a lift, so she will be here in 1 minute. But you know what? Gives us a good opportunity to talk for a second. We had some big stuff come up in the Penn State football world with Jim Knowles, obviously, being signed to Penn State to be the defensive coordinator, who is the highest paid assistant coach in all of college football history. So that is interesting. 3.1 million, 9.3 for 3 years. So if you're interested in how much that is really worth, he would be the third highest paid defensive coordinator in the NFL. Forget assistant college football. We're talking NFL. The two other defensive coordinators that would be paid more than him are the two coaching in the Super Bowl, Vic Fangio with the Eagles and Steve Spagnuolo with the Chiefs. So he is in very good company. But listen, with this much money and paying someone just a record amount and, retaining Drew Aller, Nick Singleton, Katron Allen, Dennis Sutton, Zane Durant, all these guys, it costed a lot of money. It led to Pat McAfee saying on his show, who gets, millions of views, that Penn State has a never-ending just hose of money. And I'm like, whoa, Pat, you got to slow down there, brother, because you're setting expectations here that are going to have us ended up like Ohio State, where they're 33 million in operating in the negative there. So I think we got to be careful with that narrative. For example, Pat McAfee basically said to, I think it was like AJ Hawk was on his show, one of those guys. And he's like, they just threw $700 million down on the stadium. And I'm like, Pat, that's not the case. We are in debt there. Now, we got some people coming through with some gifts. You've seen those $5 million, $10 million gifts come in. So those are nice. But it's not like that money just instantly goes to the stadium. I mean, some of that is given and used in other ways. Some of it's promised in different ways. So it doesn't automatically just mean that is going to happen. But nonetheless, dumping the money into the stadium, bringing back some big-time players, it sounds like we're in the hunt for a portal wide receiver. Yes, I think that's what everybody wants to hear. That obviously we got Ross Hudson. We got a couple guys out of the portal that seem like kind of mid-tier targets that could definitely be influential. I don't want to put a cap on them at all, but think like a Mitchell Tinsley, that type of guy was really impactful, had some big plays, but I wouldn't necessarily say we had a game breaker. And if you watched my wide receiver 0 catches video, I kind of gave this explanation. Think about Boardwalk on Monopoly. And when you get to those two blue spaces at the end and it's early game, it's like, man, I don't got the money to afford these spots, but if I get them now, they're going to pay off. So my idea is, yes, you have to go and throw 1.5 million. I know that sounds like it hurts at a portal wide receiver, but then it's going to pay off when he takes that slant 80 yards to the house. So same thing with a Monopoly. Maybe you don't want to buy Boardwalk in that other spot early on in the game, but when you put hotels on that thing and people land on it later in the game, you're cashing in and you're living that life. So same thing, if we put that money on a wide receiver, it's going to pay off in a game like Notre Dame in the playoffs. Like that's kind of how I see it. So I think that'll be very important for us to get that type of wide receiver going forward. Appreciate you guys, everybody tuning in. We got over 225 already in. We got, if you are just now joining Caroline Jurevicius, we'll be here in a minute. As I explained, the athletics life it's a rough one. It is a lot of on the go here, there. So she'll be here shortly, but we are at the Student Bookstore, downtown State College. So make sure you guys come through here. We're going to do a live show once a month here at minimum, hopefully doing a lot more stuff here in the future. Did my post-game shows here with big Keith Goon-Conlon here on Sunday mornings after home games. So that was really fun. I'm sure we will do something along those lines next season as well. So it'll be fun. I'm excited. Now that I am out of school, you guys can expect a lot more events. I'm hoping to do a lot more like Friday night events before games at, here, Cigar Den. I got something really cool coming out. Actually, I guess this is a good time to kind of mention my schedule for the next couple week posting schedule here. And we're going to start to get into, everybody's seeing a lot of like film breakdowns, but if your wife or, other people, if that's not their taste, we got more of that interactive videos coming. So I have a new series called Training Table, where we go around State College, work into Boalsburg, Bellefonte. We go to a food spot, and I take some type of Penn State guest. It's always going to be a surprise who it is, and we will interview them while we kind of review different restaurants around town. So that will be dropping on Saturday, I believe. I got a really cool video if you follow On3 and T. Frank. I had T. Frank on. We did a little Jim Knowles dissection pretty much. I texted T. Frank. I'm like, yo, you want to come by the new studio, bro? I'm like, film something? I'm like, just like 10 minutes. And he's like, what do you want to talk about? I'm like, let's do a Jim Knowles video. And that turned into a 32-minute video. So that'll be coming hot at you guys tomorrow. We kind of talk about the logistics, what it means for Penn State football to be landing someone that caliber of Jim Knowles. I think it's pretty exciting. Like I said, it takes the expectations up a whole notch for Penn State, because I guess a lot of people outside Penn State are just saying, wow, congrats, you guys got Jim Knowles. And it's like, it's actually deeper than that, because if you've been following Penn State athletics and really Penn State football, you know there has been that struggle to get that full commitment from like the board, the president, like all that stuff. Like we have that. Pat Kraft came in, and I actually talked about this a little bit, but Pat Kraft came in, and I'll never forget his first week. He came into one of our team meetings. And, at the time, we're not throwing any shade on anybody, but I remember like meeting Sandy Barber before that, and it was just like, hey, how you doing? So very formal. But like Pat Kraft came in, and he was fired up. He came in, gave a speech that had everybody on the edges of their seat. He's, screaming, yelling, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, get stuff done. And he also conveyed that like, hey, we're going to have personal relationships. Like, I want to get to know you guys. He always says, you guys are my kids. And I think that means a lot when you are – the ultimate, when you're the AD, you are up top, man. It is a hard job. So that full commitment from him, I think, has been absolutely fantastic. So really excited about what we got cooking. What's been the best part about being a Penn State grad? Oh, having a little more time, I think. I'm going to be honest. There was like 18, 19 credits. Pretty killer. It's not too easy. Hello, Caroline. How are you doing? Caroline. Yeah, you can just come around. No. We're very informal here. We just have a good time. Caroline pulled up. I explained. I said, you know what? The life of athletics is a crazy life. As conditioning, is that okay? Well, we'll have to get into that here in a second. Are you still going to do the show Mondays at the golf course after the games? Yes, we and Goon will be there for those as well. Yep. There you go. You good? You can just pop it on. It's going to be a little at first. You're good.
Okay.
Caroline.
Hi.
Caroline Jurevicius. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic.
Great to see you. I kind of had a little introduction for you, so we got to still give that to you.
Ooh, what'd you say? All good things.
So women's Penn State volleyball star, first team All-American in high school, Big Ten champion, and most importantly, national champion is how you address her. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That is very, very cool. Not many people get to say they were a national champion at Penn State. I guess first off, how's the offseason going so far?
We got right back into it pretty immediately. It just kind of like solidifies the fact like this is nonstop. So we got back on campus, and then we started workouts day one. And then now we're just in like team regimented workouts, getting into that conditioning, getting into the lifting. We start playing volleyball again next week. And we got all that talk for our spring games and getting that team camaraderie back. We have a lot of rebuilding to do, but no, back like we never left with our 2 weeks off.
That's kind of the downside. It's like, it's very fun to be good, but at the same time, if you play that deep into the season, it's like you don't get very much rest. It doesn't award you any more rest.
No, Christmas was 2 days later, and then next thing you know, I have to drive back to campus for some team meeting.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah. That's also the worst part about, I love Penn State. I was actually tweeting about it today, but also the drive back like in winter break, sometimes that can get a little dangerous.
Yeah, those mountains are no joke. Ooh. I'm driving east from Cleveland on 80, and those semis scare me, and people drive like idiots. I probably drive like an idiot. Yeah. My dad's listening to this. No, I don't. But
passing tractor trailers on the inside.
Yeah, I got my little
two-door
two-door Jeep, and I'm like getting blown around. Like the guardrails are right there, mountain cliff right there. I'm like, all right, this could be my last drive.
Oh my gosh, I know. Yeah, it is scary. It is a scary one, but today in State College, just to update you, if you're not around, it was sunny and actually somewhat warm with blue skies.
It was tropical today, dude.
It was great. It was borderline tropical, and then we get snow, and then it's like, okay, it changed. It was some heavy snow for a minute there, and then we get blue skies, sunny, and snow. So that is kind of your state college weather update. It is fun to be in our own little ecosystem, that is for sure. But
love it.
I know. Caroline,
What?
we got to talk about it a little bit more.
Okay.
Confetti falling down, being a national champ. Like I said, most people don't get to experience something like that in their life.
Yeah.
What was like the feelings that overcame you at that point?
I was asked this today, actually. I think there's a bunch of pictures. If you look at like NCAA website, Penn State volleyball website, there's pictures of the last point of the game. And I turn around and it's just like, what the F just happened? And then like we go into the dog pile and I'm still in like this state of disbelief and shock. And everybody around me is like crying, screaming, yelling. And I'm just like, what? And then I started to like pick up on the emotional cues, like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And then my coaches came over and it was kind of just like, I saw Katie, I saw like our support staff, strength coach, my nutritionist. And I'm like, all right, yeah, now the emotions started to become real and not faked because everybody else was doing it around me. But it was a really big shock for me, considering my story from my collegiate career thus far. It's been a weird 2 years, but I mean, let's try to run it back.
Yeah, exactly. That's the idea. Well, let's talk about it for a second. So you originally went to Nebraska, right?
I did, yeah.
And you did get to be a part of, I think, one of the coolest women's volleyball games ever when you guys played in the stadium. You had 90-something thousand, right?
92,003.
92,003 fans in a football stadium watching women's volleyball. What was that experience like in Nebraska?
I mean, how many women can say that they've done a tunnel walk?
There you go. Really, no other women's volleyball players besides Nebraska. Who'd you guys play?
Omaha, University of Omaha.
Oh, okay.
So we did the tunnel walk, and it was like, I don't know what song it is. The song that Nebraska plays when they like walk out, and it's just like, wow, like I feel like a pretty like badass person right now. This is awesome. And then we go out, we start warm-ups, and like I say, it was like so loud that it was like quiet. It just sounded like white noise in the background. There were so many people there. And then like I started crying during the national anthem because there was a flyover, and I'm a massive baby, and every time there's a flyover, I cry. And game starts, game ends. I unfortunately didn't get to play in that one. But you know, I think from a putting like selfish, like, ouch, that hurt not playing in that one aside, like what that did for women's sports everywhere, and like all the little girls watching, and all the people doubting that women's volleyball is just kind of like, oh, a bunch of girls just played on a court. Like, no, this is a serious game, and I'm very, very proud of what this did for the game.
It definitely did. And yeah, so let's talk about it. You said you didn't play. We don't need to get into Nebraska necessarily, but I think you guys you won the national championship, but that also wasn't even all the way up there compared to, I think, one of the greatest comebacks in sports like history. You had a reverse sweep in the semifinals for the national championship, and nonetheless versus Nebraska. First off, in the Big Ten championship, you had 18 kills and turned up on them, right? You beat them in the Big Ten championship. You get a piece of that, and then you come back, play them in the semis, and you get a career-high 20 kills, just turn up on them. Was there a little bit of chip on the shoulder against Nebraska there, going against them?
I think it's sports, and I think in any big game, any athlete's gonna have like a little bit of chip on their shoulder. And I've got nothing but love for the Nebraska program and these girls. And I mean, they're an unreal program, but I mean, who would I be if I didn't want to go into a big game like that and try to go out swinging?
A little bit of your parents in you there.
I've got my dad coached me up to say that.
That's what you got to do. Has he taken you through some like media lessons? Have you gotten like the whole like NFL spiel of like,
oh my God, I've gotten
stuff?
Media lessons like from the first time that there was like the News Herald is our paper back in Cleveland. The first time there was like a little snippet on me as a freshman. He's like, all right, do better next time. Like X, Y, and Z. This is how you talk to people. So I got the whole like media training from my dad, which was a lot more intense than it needed to be.
I believe that. Yeah, I will say I have to give you a compliment. You are very lax and you're very comfortable on camera. You've been doing some of your own work up to this point, and you kind of Talk about that for a second. What is your kind of your passion? And I got a report that you were outside, doing some reporting today with cameras.
Who told you that?
I got spies everywhere, Caroline. So yeah, just be on the lookout for me. But your broadcast journalism career, getting into that and get involved in that.
I am a broadcast journalism major. So I'm very, very passionate about storytelling as a whole, and just really trying to convey what other people go through in their lifetimes and give everybody the platform that they deserve out there. And whether that be through film, through talking, through, just like dialogue or stuff like that. I think that anybody can be interesting if you give them the right tools to be interesting. So through my broadcasting career, I've kind of gotten into the podcast space where I've just been interviewing different Penn State athletes on their life stories beyond the court, beyond the field, and who they are as human beings. Because I feel like so often athletes are diminished to their depth chart or number on the court or their stats. Like, I think we need to be looking at these people holistically, because I think the media, as good as it can be, it does a pretty bad job at allowing people to go start attacking them for who they are fundamentally when they don't even know them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. It's something that's not talked about. And think about even like back to like the teams that your dad played on and whatnot. Like they could get hate, but when they got to go home, like you didn't have to look at the paper. The paper wasn't something you always looked at. Like you might have looked at it and it was like, oh, I got some hate, whatever. But now we are trained to be on social media. It doesn't matter if you think just because, they're a big time athlete, like they won't see it. Like we see it.
No,
we see it.
It's there because people are tagging you. People are in your DMs. It's just like, what are you doing? Go.
Yeah. And
I don't know. Seek help.
Yeah. Seek help. It's hard too, to like, also not to like, if there's stuff out there about you, like an article, it's like also hard to like, as an athlete, be like, no, I'm not going to look at that. Like we had a couple guys, I think Sal Wormley, our guard, he was like, I go and look myself up on Twitter.
No, don't do that. What are you doing? My dad told me press is poison. That's the one thing. Yes. Don't read about yourself, the good and bad. Don't read about yourself. Press is poison. I try to stay off of social media as much as I can, but there's always that one random TikTok comment that you're like, what?
It
also,
does.
If you're going to talk badly about me, like spell my last name right. That's the one thing. That's kind of my one rule.
I can feel that on that one for sure. I think we can share that share that in common, the spelling of the last name. Shout out Dom DeLuca in the comment section. He said, let's do a volleyball game at Beaver Stadium. Hey, we're getting renovations. So Pat Kraft, listen up, brother. Let's do it. Let's start talking about it. Let's talk about your coach, Coach Katie.
Yep.
She obviously was diagnosed with cancer. And you guys, that was kind of into the season when that happened, showed up to as many practices as possible, was obviously just a figure of strength for you guys.
Oh, yeah.
What was that like to see her fight every single day? And I'm sure it gave you guys a lot of strength and courage to feed off of.
Yeah. I mean, Katie she's freaking amazing. I mean, so I've known her forever. She's been around Penn State forever. So like when I was a little girl, I would come back and Katie's been here. So I've known her for probably pushing 10 years. And I think to see a woman that I've known and loved for so long go through something like this, it makes it personal for you. And it makes it personal for the girls around you who also love Katie. When I think the most jarring part of it was the day we found out about her diagnosis. We were all in the meeting room and she told us and she started crying. So in turn, we were all just like, oh my God. So we all started crying, like, of course. And then like emotions kind of started to settle. And then that's when everybody individually, it was really cool actually. Everybody kind of individually started to come up with a plan on their own. Like, how can we help? Like I was driving back home and I'm thinking like, all right, what do we do to help her kids? Like, do we bring them gift baskets? Like, do we start going to her high school games? And then I get home and I'm like calling like a little team meeting with my roommates and they're like, okay, I want to talk to you guys about something. Like, I want to talk to you guys about something. And it's everybody coming together individually thinking about how we can help Katie and her family. And that also comes from winning. So we got back in the locker room the next day and Jess Merzick, she said something along the lines of like, this is bigger than us now. Like, this is something different. We have to do this for Katie. So from that day on, we play. I mean, it's a little bit bigger than the game.
Yeah, it is. And I think, going through something like that, it brings the team together. It gives you something to bond over and kind of, rally around. And it seems like that's what you guys did. I mean, obviously you're going to lose some games, but you guys just stacked days and stacked wins.
Right.
I mean, like, does that come from Coach Katie top down? Talk to me about kind of how you guys went through that mental process of like locking and like, all right, from you guys. Because remember when we did that video together, that was a little bit before Big Tens even started. And then I was,
Yes.
and you were like, we're locked in, like we're ready to go. And then I didn't get the chance to talk to you very much because obviously you're so busy. You guys won Big Tens, and then we know the rest won the Natties. Like, what was the day in and day out thought process, things you're saying to the team? Because I think we both know as players, it can get negative and a lot, because if it starts to be like, oh, this sucks, oh, I don't want to be here at practice, like that is when teams go down, when all that starts kind of gets spread around the locker room. Clearly, you guys had the opposite of that. What was like the day-to-day around the locker room and things like that?
I mean, I would be lying if I said there weren't points where, like, even I said, like, oh my God, kill me. Like, this is kind of terrible right now.
Absolutely.
But we kept that to a minimum. You say it to yourself. Like, I probably said it at that tone, like right there to myself while I was like going and shagging the ball. But the moment that you start talking to like the girl next to you, like, hey, like this absolutely sucks. I hate practice right now. Like that never happened. That just never happened. So it was an air of positivity, and it was an air of keep it together, grind it out, because we can go as far as possible this year if we just keep grinding it out, like dog it out. That's what I would say to everybody. Just dog it out.
It's gonna suck.
It's gonna suck.
You get that
from dog it out. It's always going to suck. Like, welcome to Division I sports. Like, this stuff can suck sometimes, but at the end of the day, you don't really have a choice but to keep going and keep trying.
I think that's real rap. I think a lot of people think it's all the glitz and the glamour, but it is not at all. Me, and we can kind of talk about this right now because we're going to get going on this soon, but me, Caroline and I are planning on doing some podcast work together, and it's going to be a lot of real conversations like that. We're going to talk about the struggles of being a student athlete, whatever that you have to go through, the anxiety, et cetera. And it's all honest conversations. And like you said, it's never all it's cracked up to be fully. And I'm sure, but you got to experience one of the greatest feelings that there is. But there is a lot that goes on before that. Like everybody wants to hear, I'm sure, us talk about the national championship, but like, how about when you first got here? Like those first early morning workouts, gelling with the team, getting to know everybody, getting used to, even though you came here growing up.
I've
seen the picture of you and Spider Caldwell as a recruit. My dog. Love Spider. Shout out Spider Caldwell. But like you had to get adjusted to a completely new environment just a year after being somewhere else. What was kind of all that, like that initial getting to Penn State and getting comfortable here?
I mean, to be honest, I think in my mind, the transition was pretty easy because I wanted to be here. And I mean, of course, like getting adjusted to like getting up at 5 a.m. and getting to the gym by 5:27 and getting taped up by, 5:42. That was like my routine every single morning. But getting into that routine, I mean, like that's pretty hard to try to find something. And my roommate Jess, I mean, she was older than me. She had been here. So it was just kind of like leaning on her for her guidance. And my other roommate, Maggie, she came from Nebraska with me. So it was the two of us kind of like, honestly, like being puppy dogs, like following her and trying to like see what she did. So she made it super, super easy to come in here. But making, I think the hardest part was just kind of like finding a place where I felt like I could like laugh and joke and like finding my role on the team. Like, all right, so like what personality am I going to be on the team? Like, how can I help the people around me without becoming like too overbearing because I'm new here? Like, I have to know my place. I think that was the part that was hard. And it's not like I went overbearing at first. Like I was like in the back, and then I like slowly started to kind of figure it out. So gauging
find your role. Yeah. And you're right. And like to honestly, and to be any type of like leader and things like that, like you said, you gotta do it. You gotta take some time. You gotta let people see your work ethic, like how you do your stuff, because you can't just come in and try to be a leader because it's like, well, I don't know about all that.
I mean, I would laugh at me.
Right, exactly. So no, that is the real thing. But like, we'll talk about that on our show in the future of like having to transfer in and like reprove yourself. Because when you're a freshman, it's like everybody knows you have to prove yourself. You're a freshman, like that's how it is. But it is someone that's already been in college for at least a year. It's very different. We're going to talk real quick. We're going to get into that national championship run, but I just do want to say that we are here live at the Student Bookstore downtown. We will be here once a month. And keep eyes peeled for promotion. So we will get it out 2 to 3 weeks in advance and make sure you guys know when we will be here. It'll normally be night times, probably on normally weekdays, but we'll figure it out. So a lot of cool stuff going on with that. Excited for that. We have over 830 people in the live stream. So thanks for coming out. We got Adam Talaferro in the comments section, one of the greatest to do it. Appreciate you, Adam. Caroline, let's get back into this for a second. I was talking about the reverse sweep against Nebraska, but let's talk about like the mental fortitude that takes. You guys are down 2-0, and you come all the way back to win 3-2. What,
Dude.
like when you're down 2-0, you guys finish, you just lost that second set. What was being said? What was Coach Katie saying? What are the players saying to each other? Like, how do you stay up in an environment where like most people are like, oh my gosh, this is over, I'm getting ready to turn it off?
Yeah, I mean, I know nothing about sports betting, but I do know from my friends that are very into it that we were totally not favored. Like, people did not want us to win that match. So we go back into the locker room after the second set, and we're just kind of like sitting there, and it's like it's now or never. Because I mean, we all kind of like would be damned if we just went down there and got just beat on for that last set, and like there goes our great season run. Like, we're just done in 3 like that. That's just like none of us could really stomach that after everything that Katie had been through and everything that we had fought through to be there, and like the 5-set match that we had against Creighton the last week. Like, we did not fight that hard to only come this far. And it wasn't like there was an air of panic in the locker room. It was more just like, it's like the dog it out, like the literally like, all right, dog it out.
Well, that's why I asked you earlier about what Coach Katie went through, about those early morning workouts that you started last spring that people don't see. All of that builds to that moment. Like, that all matters. Like, people just, that's the only outcome that people see. They see you guys winning the championship. But for the most part, people don't really know that day to day. They don't know you having to get up at 5 a.m., getting your workout in, so then you can go to your 3 classes later that day. Like, it is a hard life. And all of that stuff got you to that point. So once again, congratulations on being a national champion.
Thank you.
Do you ever brag to your dad that he's technically not a national champion and you are?
He's got the Super Bowl ring to throw back in my face.
That's a really good one. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, he's just right here real quick. I'm like, okay, I'll back off.
So obviously, for anybody that doesn't know, her dad was Joe Jurevicius, played here in the 90s, and then played for a couple different teams, the Bucks. Yeah, a couple other. Do you remember like any of his career really, like growing up?
Yeah, I remember a lot of Cleveland, and then I remember like little bits of Seattle, but mostly Cleveland because I remember the players' daycare underneath the stadium called the Puppy Pound, and they had really fun arts and crafts down there, and that's really what I remember from being a player's kid.
That's great.
Yeah.
I'm sure that had to be a really interesting experience. I'm going to be honest, getting to just like, and so it was like under the in the training facility, like you like went down, you got just a little drop off. Well, I guess I'm asking you when you were like 6. So
hold on,
like
let me
5.
put myself in like a place. I'm pretty sure it was like under like the west parking lot in Cleveland or something like that of the Cleveland Browns Stadium.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and I don't know. It was like a weird room, like no windows. It was super small too.
Well, you described it as this great thing at first, and now
but like, okay, well, it was so great, but like now that I'm thinking about it, it was borderline a storage closet.
Well, look. At least shout out to the Browns for doing something for the children in the daycare.
Puppy Pound. They had an actual name.
That's great. The Puppy Pound.
Yeah,
I'm sure
really
you had
cute.
some great people that ran it. So shout out the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm a dire Steelers fan, but it's all right. It's whatever.
Okay.
We won't fight. We won't fight. We won't fight yet. We won't fight yet, Caroline. So I do want to talk a little bit more about. Let's just get into it. Okay. Your favorite Joe Jurevicius story. Your father. I'm sure you got to have some good ones for us. Just being crazy.
Dad, I love you so much.
Can I just preface this real quick? I met Joe outside the Illinois game, and he came up and he was like, "Hey, I'm Joe." That was it. And I'm like, "Oh, what's up?" And it seemed like he played here, right? And so I knew he played here.
Yeah.
And like I knew who Joe Jurevicius was, but I didn't know what he looked like, right? And so he shakes my hand, and is this friend next to him? He's like, "Yeah, he was on the '94 team."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Jurevicius?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "You were a wide receiver?" Because he's
massive.
Like a huge, and it's not only that he's tall, he's huge. Like he's a big guy.
Yeah.
Like he's like he's ginormous. So I just wanted to preface that. My first impression was like, "Oh my God." But sorry, back to your favorite Joe Jurevicius story.
Okay. So there was this one time I'm like 10, 11 years old, and I was just learning how to like pick up a volleyball, but like I was also just learning sports at that time too, because I grew up like I was so tall always, and it was so hard for me to just like get a gauge on how to use my limbs and be coordinated. But we're outside, and he's like teaching me how to pass the ball. And like I lost focus for a couple of seconds. Like I'm looking like next to me, like behind me. And we lived on a ravine. So like hill, my house, and then like a ravine in the back. And then I wasn't paying attention. He takes the ball and he drop kicks it down the ravine and says, "Go get it to reset yourself." And I'm like, so I'm like crawling back up the ravine holding the ball. And then he goes and kicks it again. And he goes, "Now do it again so you're double locked." So then I came back and then had a really great training session after that, because I was terrified to lose focus again. But that's the type of stuff that would happen all the time. And I attribute a lot of who I am today. I mean, like, I'm a pretty intense person. Like, I'm not the most laid back person in the entire world, but darn it, I'm driven. So
Yeah,
shout out to my dad for that one.
Definitely shout out to your dad. They did it. Listen, that's why I'm really excited about what you're doing, not only on the court, but also in your broadcast journalism world. So be on the lookout. Where can people find you if you want? Instagram, whatever, anything like that?
Instagram at Caroline Jurevicius.
There you go.
Give it a follow.
Give it a follow. We got some cool stuff coming. Caroline's gonna be posting some cool content, so we're excited for that. Caroline, I guess I just want to ask, what's the biggest lesson you would say you learned from your parents?
I think the biggest lesson that I've learned is I would say perseverance through all, and ultimately at the end of the day, get back up. Yeah, I mean, there's been some stuff that's happened in my family's past with my brother, with some other stuff that happened. At the end of the day, you're going to wake up the next day. How are you going to respond? And life is about responding, and life is about being better than you were the day before and taking the lessons that you learned in the day prior and becoming a better person from it.
I love it. It's true. You're going to get punched in the face in life.
It's inevitable.
Most people do not get to, not most, everybody, it happens. And so you have to be able to listen when you have that ecosystem that you can rely on,
Right.
family, being at a place like Penn State. We've talked about what it means here, the family. And I think obviously, especially I can speak to that. Everything I went through, it is a special place. That is for sure. Caroline, last question for you.
Okay.
And you famously always give this on your podcast. If you could give advice to a kid or someone high school in that realm, outside of you just gave a good one. That was a really good one. So I'll let you think for a second.
Okay.
You always got to get back up, keep fighting. But you have to give one other piece of advice to a young athlete out there that's trying to grind every day, and maybe they're losing focus a little bit, whatever it may be. What would you say to them to get to the point where someone like yourself is at?
I would honestly say that the mental work matters just as much as the physical work. I think that there's the mindset of no days off. Like, yes, that's true, but you are allowed to take physical days off. But what you do during those off days for your mental, whether that be meditation and working on not thinking about anything, that's probably the stuff that I wish I learned a lot earlier, because I think that could have helped me as a young athlete in order to just like calm down and feel and become more of a student of the game. Like, watch your film, meditate, visualize. Those are the big three, and it doesn't require any physical work, but it'll make you a way better player.
Mm-hmm. And it will, and doing those type of things, those carry over into real life too. When
Right.
you build those habits through sport, it happens when you have a family later in life, whatever it is, it means a lot. Well, awesome, Caroline. This was really cool. What I will say, I didn't get to tell you this, but we're going to give you a couple volleyballs to sign and give away on your Instagram. I'll help you. I'll help you with all the logistics of getting it to people. So one more time, follow at Caroline Jurevicius on Instagram, and she will in the near future here we'll get some post up and some volleyballs given away. So be on the lookout for that. That should be really exciting. Yay. Like I said, Caroline, thank you so much for coming down here, the Student Bookstore downtown. Like I said, we will be here once a month, and be on the lookout for the times, dates, and who will be a part of this. But Caroline and I are going to be doing some cool stuff together here in the very near future. So be on the lookout. It's going to be fun. It's going to be real, raw, transparent, good, fun content. Stuff. Pretty much all things Penn State, or a little bit athletics and that side of the coin there. But it's going to be a lot of fun. So be on the lookout, Caroline. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, appreciate you guys coming through. Over 1,000 people between Twitter and YouTube in here watching this. So that means a lot. Stop by the Student Bookstore downtown for any of your Penn State merch needs. And we will see you guys next month. And last thing, I do have videos coming all week. We got some cool stuff. Me and T. Frank got together to talk about Jim Knowles, the Penn State defensive coordinator, what that means. We got Training Table. That is a new series I'm coming out with where I grab somebody that's Penn State that you guys know. We go to a restaurant in Penn State area, downtown State College, but also a little Bellefonte, Bowlesburg, that type of thing. We review food and we sit down and just have some conversations while we review a restaurant. And then we got Behind the Wheel making a return here very shortly. So a lot of cool stuff coming. Appreciate you guys tuning into this one. I will talk to you guys soon. Caroline, thank you so much.
Thank you.